Can you hear me? Hello, Jennifer. Can you hear me?
There we go. Okay. Nope, I still can't hear you, Joanne. Shows my audio's on. Says I'm connected to audio. So looks like Tracy, just remember when you guys are calling in to either call in or go to that little connected audio icon, go to more, click whichever one you'll be using, computer or call in if you're doing computer. You kind of, and then it should be highlighted green if you're down below, if your audio is on. That little icon, that whole little icon with the headset and the speaker should be green. There, I hear somebody typing. Chat. Cannot hear you, but I did hear someone typing.
I don't know why this is so hard.
No, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know what it was the magic words. I don't know why this is so hard. I do think there is a little bit of a delay. I've done this a few times now. When you connect to audio via your computer, it does seem like there's a little bit of delay for it to kind of kick in. So I don't know. I don't know why, but I heard you. You sounded great. And Tracy's on, it looks like. Same thing with Tracy. If you want to call in, you can test your audio on your computer.
Hopefully, either Claire or Penny. Yeah. It's been a long day.
No.
We'll come on soon and test out sharing their screen.
Perfect.
And I went ahead and called and got us rooms. They're supposed to call me back on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fast. That'll be good.
Did you hear the lovely music?
I did. Yep.
I am freezing.
It's so funny. I have a heater literally within arm's length of me.
Well, I've got a blanket on me, and I'm going to put the chair heater on.
Okay, anybody else? I guess it on the deal it shows starting at 3:45, correct? So
Correct.
yeah.
I think I'm on here twice.
Well, and one of them, the WD individual learning thing,
Uh-huh.
and one of them, I'm wondering, oh, well, yeah, you are on twice. I can see the bigger picture of you. I was wondering if because I'm on as well, if it was picking up two different, both of us, but.
No, I think I joined twice by mistake. I don't know how to fix it.
Now I see. Yep, you're right. I don't know how that happened. Is this being recorded right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Were you able to download the last one to someplace?
No, the issue that I have, I'm running on a temporary program install because they never put this on my computer. So I have been running off of a temporary application. And then when they asked about downloading it, I said, yeah, I will do it. But when I download it, I can't open it. I can't do anything with it. And I'm not quite sure where the best place is to store it because it does take up a lot of room. So Paula said that she would download it. Of course, she said, will you be in today into the office? And I said, no. Hopefully tomorrow. But I think what we have found is that Amy Lance, with the one that works with Susie, it sounds like she's able to take these videos and put them into YouTube, which is really the easiest way as far as everybody can access YouTube now.
There we go. Yeah.
So that's what we'll try to do.
So we just didn't pick the right one.
Penny, are you there?
Oh, yeah. I see your name. And Lori.
Are you taking roll, or do I need to do that?
I don't mind. I can start taking it, and I'll just kind of.
Okay, and thank you guys. Thank you.
Hi, Lori.
Hi there, I'm on. I'm going to shut my microphone off, though, for now, okay?
Okay.
Good. Thanks. I can see Penny, and she must be trying to call in. All right.
We don't have, our camera turned on, and we haven't, they were kind of keeping track of who's there, but we haven't set it, and I suppose we could say it on the chat or something.
Oh, can they hear it? Don't we have the audio on? Connected the audio, yeah, they can hear it. So, as soon as they,
So many people are still there.
but was that such a huge?
Hello.
Hi, Penny.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good, good. Did Claire tell you I'm going to be substituting for her tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Big news on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Let me put this down and make sure my speaker works. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Penny, we lost you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Penny.
Yeah, it picks it up through the snowball. Come on in. And then it'll play it speakers.
Penny?
We've lost him. Okay. We have completely lost him.
My other south is getting a lot of rain. So the south is that bad. Here we go. Here's another one. I'll get my chair. Okay.
Jennifer, did we lose Penny?
Well, I can see her name up there. There's now I can see her video. Okay. Trying to call that. Oh,
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Can you hear my speaker?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
So I'm gonna make you the presenter.
Okay.
Trying to figure out how to do that.
All right.
Oops. Every time I hit a button, I lose everything.
Uh-oh.
let's see if you click on Penny's screen, Joanne. Do you? Let's see.
It just says chat.
No, I see that.
Let me see if I can find. Let's see. I was trying to click on share screen on my end, but it doesn't seem like I've got that option. It's just kind of grayed out.
This is odd. It's not letting. Everything's grayed out for me too. Joanne, is it for you?
If I go to share, yeah, everything's grayed out.
Okay, what about participant?
When I click on participants, it takes everything away.
Okay, see, and I'm not. Let's see, I'm not the host, and so
Microphone's on.
Trying to see if I can figure out how we can give the Sure, it's super easy when it's not grayed out and it lets you do it. Kind of tricky when it's like that, isn't it?
It is.
The nerve.
I'm trying to find a way to do this.
I'm going to pop across the hall and ask Karen if she has any idea, okay? I'll just
Okay. Well, before, every time I would scroll over someone's name, it would ask me if I could put them as host.
Exactly.
But
it's
not
allowed.
doing that now.
That's interesting.
Oh, it's their stuff they have me call in. So it's through the Wyoming Department of Ed site.
Hi.
Oh, wait.
Did
Oh,
you
okay, I found
make
it
Penny
on my screen.
an administrator or the presenter?
That I ordered.
Joanne, have you made me the presenter?
She already got it.
I'm trying to, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right.
Good. Oh my God.
My screen's going crazy.
Wow, it's
Whoa.
like Alice in Wonderland.
It is. It's crazy, isn't it?
It won't let me close anything. Penny, where'd you go?
I'm here, over here, like wherever my screen is.
God.
Because when everyone's watching you.
No, I'm going back into our Webex to see it. I'm not quite sure why it's not giving us any kind of ability to share. Everything's grayed out.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why.
I find this program is a little strange.
Oh, something's going on there. Share screen?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
that's
and hers.
I was getting all excited here.
Okay, I found it.
Oh.
I made you the presenter. Yes.
You made me the presenter?
Yep.
Okay.
I made you the
So-
presenter.
Oh, you think it's from up here as opposed to here?
Either way.
Let's try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Karen. All you had to do was walk
Moral
in.
support.
Okay, that's what I need. Okay, is it working for you all to see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. It's so nice to see these faces from the summer.
Before you start, Penny, Jennifer, do you want to do a roll or do you have everyone?
You know what? I have, is there two different, okay, I see, there is two different Tracys, one with an E and one with Y. Okay, I think I'm okay. I'm going to scroll through and grab everyone's names.
Is anyone sharing their computer with other people?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, we are here in Worland.
So, Warland, can you let us know who's all there?
Yes, we have Guyla Martinez, Susan Wiley,
Jerry Mall.
Jerry Mall.
Can I just, sorry, I think, would it be easier, Warland, I think you guys have quite a few, could you just email Joanne and I that list? Because I know you guys have a lot of folks there.
Yes, we do. What's the email?
That would be perfect. That would be perfect, thank you.
What's the email?
Joanne.whitson@wyo.gov.
Whitson, W-I-T.
WHITSON.
Dot what?
Perfect.
Whitson?
Yeah, that way we get everybody. I know that one time we did a call, there was a handful of you from Warland. I just want to make sure we get everybody there.
Excuse me, could you give me that email one more time, just to make sure I got it right?
Joanne, JOANNE .Whitson, WHITSON @WYO.gov.
Thank you.
Is anyone else sharing computers with other people? Okay, Penny, it's all yours.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Well, I don't know if all of you know why I get the honor of speaking to you tonight or not, but Claire is in the process of becoming a grandmother. Baby one was born this afternoon, and we got a picture of a gorgeous baby girl named Anna Claire that her daughter had, and her son and his wife are in Orlando, Florida. Claire's was at the hospital with her daughter. She's probably still there in North Carolina, but her son and his wife, the wife is in labor, so we're just waiting to see if her first 2 grandchildren are born on the exact same day. Isn't that crazy? It's lovely. And we've all been walking around UNC today at the Literacy Center with big smiles on our faces because we're so doggone excited for her. So the other nice thing about that is that she let me do this webinar tonight because she is otherwise engaged. So she has started out talking about the Literacy Center, which you're all, I know at this point, pretty familiar with. Claire and I are both on faculty here. Our mission is about promoting literacy learning and use for all individuals of all ages with disabilities. And so that is our main goal. This is our contact information, and you can also just always find how to reach the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies by Googling it. Claire has, her first slide was to congratulate you, and she, I guess, has received some comments from you, and some of the ones that she highlighted were someone had reported that kids are so much more engaged, and certainly we all know that engagement is key. Kids have to be interested in what you're doing, and they have to be plugged in cognitively, so the engagement is huge. Also, someone reported we're trying to figure it out, and that is like, hey, when they say lifelong learning, they're not joking. We have some very complex students that we are trying to teach, and so trying to figure out it's great. It's what you've got to be doing, and it's probably, no matter how much you learn, it's what you're going to keep trying to do. The last comment that she said is he doesn't get it yet, but he wants to. And so I think that's also really, really important. We want things to be successful right away, but the things that we're working on teaching these students are complicated, and they take a long time to develop. And so what's interesting is you don't know necessarily what all is seeping in there and what might just come exploding out. All right, so it's great that you see that this particular student is focused and really wanting to achieve whatever it is you're trying to learn. She has some bullet points here about how important it is to keep up all of these teaching and instructional strategies that you've been using. And so something like shared reading and predictable chart writing are definitely key activities that you want to be doing with students who are at an early literacy or emergent literacy level. You can continue working on these things as the students move towards a more conventional level, and they won't be detrimental or boring to the students or a waste of time, but they're really, really critical when they're in that emergent stage. For vocabulary, those of you who are using this vocabulary approach for students who need augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. Also, a lot of times you will use this with students who don't necessarily need AAC for all of their communication, but they might need this core vocabulary to support their language development and their participation in academic activities. And so that's great that you're continuing to use that. Working with a word wall, so that now we're talking about kids who would be at a conventional literacy level, and these are kids where we're thinking, okay, they know most of their letters on most of the days, they are engaged and interested during shared reading, they have a way to communicate expressively, and they also have some sort of pencil that they can operate. And so at that point, once they know all their letters, you can begin working with a word wall, because now we're not just going to be thinking about sort of phonological big picture things. We're going to be thinking about more specifically what sounds individual letters make and and what they sound like when we put them together. We'll be looking with a word wall, we'll be looking to learn words that are those kind of words that show up frequently in text but maybe aren't decodable by phonics. So a word like the or was. But on our word wall, we're also looking at teaching kids how to use words with frequently occurring spelling patterns, those 37 common rhymes, how to use those words to help you read and spell other words that you don't know but have that same spelling pattern. The idea of working with words, again, for students who are at a conventional level, you're going to be helping students learn how to decode and spell individual words to support both reading and writing. And these would be activities like making words activities that we talked about during the summer, or word sorts. We're going to talk a little bit about that later today. Using alternate pencils is something that your students of any reading level are going to do, whether they're emergent or whether they're conventional. We want them, even if they can't start spelling yet or they can't really attempt spelling, even if they can't do letters, we want them to be able to do the equivalent of scribbling by using an alternate pencil when they're at that emergent level, and then we'll begin to help them attach meaning to what they're doing. We'll continue to teach about alphabet and phonemic awareness, and that's going to help pull them towards spelling. The final bullet point that Claire was talking about was engaging in guided reading lessons, and this, as you know, will be for your students who are at a more conventional level, and the guided reading is to help students really understand how to comprehend text and how to talk about it. And so we're doing, often using the anchor, read, apply approach, where we're trying to give the students an anchor by connecting what they're going to read to something in their own experience and in their background. We're giving them a specific purpose for reading. We're reading the book, and then we're going back and doing an activity that's tied to that purpose.
Penny,
Yes.
can you talk a little closer to the speaker? There's some buzzing going on, and it might be because of the distance.
Okay.
So
is that any better?
It's easier to hear you, but it still buzzes.
Okay. I don't know what the buzzing is about. I have my microphone turned off on this. I'm sorry, I don't hear it, so I'm not quite sure what to do about it. But if anybody has an idea, chime in. So today, the topics that Claire had outlined for you to go over are communication, core vocabulary, and AAC. There's also a little section that we're going to talk about on rhyming, but rhyming more in the sense of not just listening for that sort of phonological awareness of words that sound the same at the end, but beginning to pay attention to letter patterns that cause words to sound the same. There's a small section on alternate pencils, on writing, on the word wall. There is some information presented about IEP goals and information addressing some other questions that you have submitted to Claire. So the first thing that we're going to do when we talk about communication is talk about communication abilities and in the framework of the communication matrix. And I'm wondering if this is something that you use with your students who are early communicators. Do you all ever administer the communication matrix?
I use it with my students.
Okay.
And especially for my AAC eval.
Excellent, excellent. It's a really, really handy tool, and if you haven't used it before, you want to check it out. It's a very, very affordable resource, like it's free. And so that's how affordable it is. So what it does is it looks at the communication abilities. You can be any age and take the communication matrix, but it looks at the communication abilities of individuals who are developing communication skills. Okay, so I think all of us know and have worked with students that might be in high school that still are pretty early communicators because they haven't developed a really good system yet of communicating. So communication matrix would even work for a student like that. What it does is it pinpoints how students are communicating currently, and it provides you with a framework to think about goals and interventions. Oftentimes when you have kids who are at the most beginning levels of communication, it's really hard to think about what do I do next. Or we work with students that it takes them a while to make progress, and the communication matrix will help you be able to observe and appreciate those small changes in someone's communication that are making them move from this sort of pre-intentional communication behavior towards something that is more intentional, towards something that is more conventional, and finally towards something that is truly language. And so what it does is it looks at the functions that the student is trying to communicate across 4 different broad areas. We'll look at that more. But it also looks at the means that they're using to communicate those functions. So what the matrix does is it takes a look at communication behavior across these 7 different categories. And it starts with the earliest pre-intentional behavior. And pre-intentional communication behaviors are the student is exhibiting something, but often it's just a reflexive behavior. So I'm hungry and I cry because my tummy hurts, all right? Or I'm tired and I yawn. But as I do that, I'm not doing it to try and convey any kind of message. I'm just doing it because that's what my body feels like doing. Level 2 is intentional behavior. So I'm not doing it to really get your attention, but I'm just crying because I'm really sad and I'm really angry and it feels like the right thing to do. Okay? Unconventional communication is the communication where it's an unconventional behavior, but I am trying to communicate with someone. I may not be, I'm trying to get a message across to somebody. So we certainly see unconventional communication in kids who exhibit behaviors that we think are inappropriate. If I don't want to do it, if I'm angry, I hit someone, I scream, I throw a fit. Okay, we're getting the message that you're not happy, but it's not in a conventional way that you're telling us that. Conventional communication is going to, it may not be particularly sophisticated, but there are vocalizations and gestures like pointing and reaching, things like that. At level 5, you get to concrete symbols, so this might be a student who can communicate using very representational, either photographs or line drawings, or perhaps can use objects to communicate. Then we get to level 6, which is more abstract symbols, and those could still be line drawings, but they're representing something not as concrete as like a line drawing of a dog, but maybe a line drawing of, say, the concept of big. Okay, it's a little bit more abstract. And then finally, level 7 is when you get to language, and once you're at language, it means that you are using those symbols and you're combining more than one symbol, and you're starting to develop things like phrases and syntax. Oops. So this first part, to go back one, these are, this is before you're at intentional communication, and when you get down here, level 3 and on is intentionally that you're doing these things to communicate. So at this reflexive way, you can see things in a student, and I bet you've all seen them, about turning their head, turning away or moving away from something, changing their posture. Those are body movements that are used to, that might be pre-intentional. Early sounds are things like cooing, crying, fussing, whining, facial expressions like a smile or a grimace. You might look down if you are trying to look, you don't want to see something, and this idea of pushing something away. So here, the behavior at these early levels is not under the individual's own control, but it's basically reflecting the state. And so the adult attributes meaning, right? So you hear somebody crying in your classroom, you know that something is wrong, and so you're going to go and attend, and you're attributing meaning that there's a problem. When you get a little bit higher to things like these facial expressions and visual, the behavior is under the individual's control, but it's not really used to communicate intentionally yet. Still, the adult is the person who's going to be attributing the meaning. And once you get to looking at things, to using these unconventional pre-symbolic behaviors, now you're at a place where you are, like if I take your hand and walk you to something, okay, or I guide you to something, I am intentionally trying to communicate with you, even though this is not in a symbolic way. It's in a very, I'm just grabbing your hand and taking you there. When we get to intentional communication, you're going to see some of these different behaviors, like you can still see pre-symbolic behaviors, but these are used to intentionally communicate. So I might hold my hand up to show you something. I might shake my head or nod my head to say a yes or no. I'm going to hug you because I like you. Okay. When you get to concrete symbols, now this is something that we talked about where the symbol actually kind of resembles the object that it's standing for. So again, the examples that they're giving you here are things like line drawings and photos. They're very representational. Objects, pantomime, or maybe mimicking a noise of something. Abstract symbols, okay, these are things like spoken words. Okay? Why should the word flower sound or look anything like that thing that's growing in your yard? All right? Written words, these are abstract symbols that we have put together to represent different words. Same within Braille. Excuse me. Manual sign. Certainly for those of us who don't sign, we can appreciate the fact that it is this sort of, it is a way of communicating, and it's a symbolic way of communicating, but if you don't understand it, you have to learn that. It's very abstract. And again, you could have an abstract 2- or 3-dimensional symbol. So some symbols that we use are much more abstract, like the symbol for is or are in Boardmaker. And that's an equal sign, and that's very, very abstract to me. 3-dimensional symbols, it could be, if you've ever seen any of the, we're doing some 3-dimensional tactual symbols for students who are blind. And again, the symbol, if I'm thinking of how am I going to represent something like the word in, it's going to be very, very abstract. So there's a certain kind of shape and color and texture associated with that word because it's a preposition, and all prepositions have that same sort of code. But we're going to, whatever symbol we use to represent the word in is going to be somewhat abstract, and we're going to have to teach it. Again, this idea of language is when you're really starting to combine words or symbols. So I think one really, really important thing to remember is that these levels are not a hierarchy. Okay, you're going to see students who are exhibiting conventional, communicative, intentional behaviors in some situations and settings, and not in others. So you might have a student who knows 1 or 2 conventional gestures, like maybe they know how to nod their head, maybe they know how to wave, okay? And they might be able to use symbols for things like more and different. but maybe when they get really angry and protest, they're just going to scream and grunt and throw a fit. Okay? So what's happening is symbol use may be done in environments where it's really familiar to a student, or it may be done when the student is calmer, right? But to get to the symbol level when they're really upset about something, they may not be there yet because they just don't know it well enough. So the other thing is you don't move through this hierarchy by sort of mastering one level and then moving to another. We can expose students to different levels in this hierarchy before they're actually demonstrating those behaviors. So this just gives you another way. You want to think about what ways do your students usually communicate. So if you have a student who's going to refuse things from you, how is it that they do that? Do they just, are they making a noise to say they don't want to do it, or, that it makes you think? It's not that they're saying it, it makes you think it. Are they protesting? Okay. Or are they actually pushing something away, refusing it, and telling you no? Same with obtaining. Is the student, if they get what they want, are they expressing comfort? Are they in some way indicating to you that they want more of something or want you to continue an action? Or are they actually making a request by handing you a symbol or asking you or making a sign that says more? All right? When you get to the highest level here, this would be students who are requesting something that isn't present in the environment. So this is the idea. It goes from something that's very, very simple, okay, for social. I'm just expressing interest in other people. But as I go up to the next level, I might be trying to attract attention, okay? Now I'm going to be actually asking you for your attention, showing a person affection, all the way up to something that's a more polite way of interacting with people, like greeting them or offering to share. Right? This is going to have a lot of circles coming up, and try to ignore that as we go through it. Okay, so in terms of the core vocabulary words that you have, this is involving symbolic representation for most of the core vocabulary. And most of those symbols that you have are more of the abstract type of symbol than a very concrete. Concrete symbols tend to be things like nouns, like that you can draw and represent really easy, but you've got words in your core vocabulary that express things like, that's a feeling, that express that being a thing, a pronoun, that express in, prepositions, different kinds of verbs that are not always easy to picture. What sort of picture do you use for the word do, right? That's pretty abstract. And so core vocabulary words are typically represented with more abstract symbols, even if they're visual. And then what we're trying to do when we use core vocabulary is we're trying to model it in a way so that even though a student may not be at that language level, what we're going to do is we're going to take what they said with that one word level and try and add another word to it. So we can show them that you can go beyond just one word, you can combine words. And when you do that, what you say is both clearer and it's more meaningful. So you can begin to model your core to students who are only at those level 3, those unconventional pre-symbolic behaviors, because those kids are trying to intentionally communicate, they're just not doing it in a way that's conventional. And so as a student does something, so Claire's got the example here of telling the student squeals. So your response is to say, when you squealed, your voice sounded mad. I think you were telling me you do, and she's got the symbol board here, not like. I think you're telling me you do not like. So you're not asking the student to say it that way, but you're giving them information about what they're communicating to you and other ways that they might do that. When you teach core vocabulary, and you do have to teach it, we cannot assume that the students that come to our classes with significant cognitive disabilities and complex communication needs, we cannot assume that they are already going to know what these words and symbols mean. Okay? Don't ever forget that it's very easy for us to understand why a certain symbol might go with a certain word, but that's typically because we read the word when we look at the symbol. Our students, are for the most part not yet literate, and so if they're just learning what that symbol is, we have to help them become familiar with what it is, where it's located on their system, and the word that it goes with. As far as teaching words, that's important too. All of the words that are on a core vocabulary system are what we would call Tier 1 words. They're very common. They're used across context. And for most students, when they come to school, we assume that they know and understand those Tier 1 words. We should not make that assumption for our students, because they may know what some words mean, but they may know it in a more limited either context or just one of many, many ways of using a particular word. So if you take the word can, they may understand a can of soda, but they may not understand can as in I'm able to do this as well. So we have to make sure that we're really teaching both words and symbols. Students should be encouraged to use symbols to communicate, but not required. All right? We are, with the communicators that we're working with, first and foremost, if they have shown us in a way that doesn't involve symbol use and they've been able to successfully communicate their message, that's great. We're going to attribute meaning to that. We might show them, we might try and expand their message by using some core vocabulary, but I'm not going to force a student to use your symbols to tell me something. Again, the next point, all communication behaviors really must be acknowledged. And you attribute meaning. And as a partner, you should respond appropriately to what the student does. As a well-meaning speech pathologist, I have often questioned if I really understood what my student was trying to express, and so I would be hesitant to attribute meaning, not because I don't think the student is smart or can communicate with me, but because I didn't want to make a mistake. What I've since figured out is you attribute meaning because if the student is really intent on telling you something, and somehow, some way you have gotten it wrong, then they've got another chance to communicate with you and let you know that that's not what they meant. At which point you can come back and say, well, when I show you something and you jump up and down and scream, that makes me think you're scared. I didn't realize you're just excited. So you should use AAC to support and model the students. And I hope that you're all still working on providing aided language input so that the way you're doing that is as you say your own phrases and sentences, you're highlighting one or two of the words that you're using, one or two of those core words on your student's system so that your student gets a model of how AAC works and how it can be used. I can't say enough about the fact that students who use AAC rarely get opportunities to see other students using AAC proficiently. And so we have to fill in those gaps because the information they get coming in is through speech. Yet the information that they're going to put out involves locating symbols, combining them, and creating a message in a way that's somewhere between writing and speaking, whereas what they get coming in is just straight speech or sign. Students should not be expected to start producing symbolic language using their C system right away. You can do a lot of modeling for them, and they will be learning as you're modeling. So don't demand that they do it right away. You can provide lots and lots of opportunities and encourage it, but sometimes the most powerful thing is just providing that model. I think back to a classroom that I went into with a student who was kind of known as a behavior problem, and he really did not have a good way of communicating except through doing these behaviors, which got everybody's attention really quickly. But we took in a communication system, and the first time I brought it in, it was a core word system, and I didn't even ask him to use it. I didn't even hand it to him like it was his. I just started using it. He was putting together a floor puzzle. So he would put in a piece, and I would point to one word. I would say, oh, you put that in. That's really cool. You put it in. And he looked at me like, that's strange what she's doing, but I'll keep watching. So I would say, why don't you do more? And so just doing those things, he watched and watched and watched me for about 10 minutes while he was working on this puzzle. And when he got to the last piece, he didn't put it in. And I was looking at him saying, oh, put it in. You know where it goes. Come on, put it in. And he looked and looked and looked, and then the teacher said, we have to leave for recess now. So he quickly put the piece in, and he came up and gave me this gigantic hug. And I was like, oh, I think he didn't put the piece in because he was enjoying the interaction. He sort of didn't want it to end. So I do think that even though he wasn't using the system to communicate, he was watching what I did and he was learning. I went back to the school about a week later, and I took in a communication system that they could keep in the classroom and try with him. The first time I was there, I was just picking up something on the fly that was laying around. And this time I went and sat with him at the lunch snack table, and I said, oh, my name is Penny. Look. And I flipped to an alphabet page. And I said, my name starts with a P. And I pointed to the P. And one of the other kids at the table just grabbed it. And this was a child who had no communication issues. And he said, oh, well, my name's Jose. It starts with a J. And then somebody else grabbed it to show us the first letter of their name. Finally, this little guy, the one who really needed the AAC system, took the system and he pointed to the first letter in his name, which was a G. And so then I flipped it back. He was looking at the core, and I said, wow, I like that. That's really cool. I can see what your first letter is. You showed me. And so then I said, oh, it looks like you're eating lunch. And he went and pointed to the word good. And I said, oh, it's good. So then now he started using it. But it was all that time of just kind of modeling, no demands, but offering plenty of opportunities. And he's doing really, really well. But don't give up and don't demand. Okay? One thing that's sometimes hard for us because we're constantly we want to teach our students. We're constantly trying to collect data on how their progress is, right? And that is important. But through the work of Marianne Romsky and Rose Sevchek and a study that they did, they discovered that students could learn how to use core vocabulary without that continuous prompting and structured practice. Excuse me. So what Romsky and Sevchek did was provide lots and lots of opportunity for these kids to have their core vocabulary systems in place, and they would use the core vocabulary and model it for these students during meaningful activities in natural settings. So we run into problems with our students who aren't particularly flexible learners when we're teaching something in a really decontextualized and rigid way. And then we wonder why they can't generalize it. So what Romsky and Sevchek did is they just embedded use of the core vocabulary throughout the activities that were going on in students' days. They provided a lot of modeling and aided language input, and what they saw is that their students really improved quite nicely and made improvements over students who were learning this in a more drill and practice way. So, have most of you seen the video from the Teaching Core Vocabulary for the Dynamic Learning Maps module, or not really? I'm thinking I would like to show it, but if lots of people have already seen it, I don't want to bore you. Would you like to see it or not, or rather not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. So even if you've seen it, I'm going to give you sort of the background to it, and so just hang on through it. This is a teacher who all the students in her classroom have a diagnosis of autism, and some of them talk. You're going to see that here, but some of them are cannot use speech at all. They also all have a lot of difficulty with language, and so as she's teaching them this core vocabulary, even if it's a student who is speaking without any problems, they can all benefit from this vocabulary instruction. And so what she's going to do is she's picked out a word that she's going to teach, and she will show the students where the word is on the core vocabulary, the big classroom board. They all have personal boards that look just like that. Now, she's going to show them where that word is located, and she's going to try to provide what I like to call a student-friendly definition. So in other words, she's not going to look in Webster's dictionary and come up with some really fancy definition. She's going to try and make it really accessible to the students. But what's hard about defining core vocabulary words is that they're already such sort of simple words. It's hard to think of a simpler word to describe it. So she's going to try to describe the word can, and the closest word she can come up with is able. I'm talking about something you are able to do. Well, in truth, able is a more complicated word than can, but it's the best she can do in this situation. Then she's going to combine that new vocabulary word and symbol with a known vocabulary word and symbol to help them be able to attach something to it. And she's going to start creating phrases that demonstrate the meaning of the word. Then she's going to create phrases asking kids to do something to see if they understand it. And then she's going to support them in creating phrases where they demonstrate, they use the word in a phrase. So here we go. Little Velcro malfunction.
If I tell you you are able to do it, then that means all of you can do what I'm asking. So I can jump. I can jump. Stop. I can jump. about Aaron. You can stand. Yes. Cameron. Let's try walk. And I want to show you that I can walk. I can walk. I can walk. Elijah, you can walk. Look at Elijah. Oh, you can walk with the arms are swinging. You can walk. Nice job. Now I want to ask you, Matthew, I want to ask you, what can you do? What can you do? Cameron, what can you do? Can you tell me about it? Okay, can you tell me what you can do? Hey, you tell me. Walk. Let's go back. Let's go what you want to say. Yeah, that's how you spell walk. Since you're in your I. And we found our new word, can. Walk. Go up. Look at Cameron. Oh, you sure can. Look.
Okay, so again, you can see how she's supported them in taking that word, understanding an easy definition, combining it with a word or words that they already know, demonstrating what the word means by doing the sentence, asking them to do something to see if they understand the sentence, and then letting them compose their own sentence to demonstrate understanding of the word. So, are any of you using a large classroom-sized core vocabulary?
No.
Nobody? Okay. If you're interested in finding out more about, if you have lots of students in your classroom who use AAC and would use core, and you're interested in finding out about how to construct one of those large classroom-sized boards, get in touch with me or Claire, and we can give you some help with that. As you're teaching the core vocabulary, you want to start to think in terms of core, so that as you are providing your instruction, or maybe you're thinking about certain kinds of books you might be sharing or activities you might do, you want to think about what kind of core vocabulary words could I be modeling as I do those things. And so, again, this providing opportunities by combining that new word with known words and symbols. And keep in mind that words have multiple meanings, okay? And so there's another video that we have. If you did the core vocabulary module from DLM, you saw it, where the teacher is teaching them about the word on. And so on has many, many meanings. And so she teaches them about how to put one object on another object. She gives them examples about turning the lights on versus off. And she talks about putting on a coat for winter and putting on your shoes on your feet. So some of the kids we work with, particularly the ones she works with who have a diagnosis of autism, can be a little bit more rigid And she's really trying to get them to think flexibly and know that you can use these words in many, many different ways. So, who knows what this board maker symbol stands for? Does anybody know?
Round?
If I told you it's for turn, would that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So this is the board maker symbol for turn. And so, but there's no way without having the label that you should expect one of your students to understand what that symbol stands for, right? And then, so just think for a second about some of the meanings that this word might have. Take a second and try and come up with 3 different meanings for the word turn. Okay, so if you're in a classroom with young kids, you're probably thinking about a turn can be an opportunity to do something. It's my turn, right? Like a chance to do something. You might be thinking of turning something around so the front faces the back. You might be thinking of driving a car and making a right turn. You might be thinking about, like after about 5 or 6 weeks, I like to think that it's time to turn my hair back to brown instead of gray. All right, so something that's changing a state, right? There are lots and lots of different meanings for the word turn. And so if you just think, what would be some interesting context that I could teach the word turn in my classroom, it's not that hard to think of, right? You could certainly talk about it being someone's turn, right? You could certainly talk about turning around and facing a different side of the room. You could certainly think about we go down the hall and then we're going to turn to the right to get to the lunchroom. Okay, so you just want to think, I'm going to pick out 2 or 3 words this week and I'm really, really going to focus on highlighting them in the activities that I do. In order to be good at modeling and to be effective, you're going to have to always have that core vocabulary available. We're currently involved in a research project around implementing the use of core vocabulary. I'm not sure if Claire has talked to you much about that or not, but one thing that we're trying to do, and when we see it really successfully used in a classroom, is that core, there are copies of the core vocabulary all around the classroom. Teacher might have a large classroom-sized core on the core board on the wall. Students have individual systems. A lot of times in the classrooms, the teacher will have the core taped down, just a paper-based system taped down on the work table in front of students so they can use it when they're doing, say, their science lesson and trying out an experiment, or they're reading a book and they might want to comment on what the book says. So you just want to think about always having that core vocabulary available, both to your students who need AAC and to yourself. Sometimes you have to think about how might I engineer the environment so that that core is always available to my students. We have some students who use wheelchairs and they have a clear tray and the teachers have taped the core underneath their clear tray so students can see it, but they're not going to rip it up and peel it off. Okay. Speak in a natural way as you think about the words that you can model. So don't do backflips and gymnastics to make some kind of a weird agrammatical phrase just to use a core word, all right? Try and speak naturally. You know, on core words right here, because we are doing this set for beginning communicators, we're not representing things like past tense verbs, right? Because we're just at the beginning. We're not quite there yet. So if you want to say that you went somewhere, you can still point to the symbol go. Oh, you know, I went there last weekend, all right? Even though it's a different word, you still do that. Don't say I goed there, right? Okay, repeat and expand what kids are saying using your own speech to build a meaningful context. So if you have a student just pointing to one word, you're going to try and repeat that one word and attribute meaning to it, but you're also going to try and expand it using your own speech so that students see the possibility of how you can put more than one word together. And really, really, really avoid asking students to show me this or point to that, right? That's not, that's you directing them, okay? You want them to truly communicate with you, and real communication is not about doing what someone tells you to do, okay? It's about both give and take on both sides of the conversation. If you're saying show me and point to, what's happening is you're testing the student. You're not having an opportunity to teach or interact naturally and meaningfully. Now, if you want to say something like, we're going to read this book today. Can you point to or show me anything on your core board that you think this book might be about? That's okay, but directing to a certain word or a certain symbol, you don't want to do that. Now, you can use core vocabulary across your day, and you should think about, okay, if I'm having to incorporate core with kids who are using AAC or who are just beginning communicators, and this might even be supporting their language development, what are the activities that I have in my day where I might be able to use those core words? And so we've just taken some of the activities that we've seen in one of the schools we've been in, and we see across the grade levels they do a lot of arts, they do a lot of crafts, they even do some dramatic play there. And so what ways could you communicate in those sort of settings? Well, you can communicate about what you're doing, right? So if you're doing an art activity, you can talk about, I'm gluing or I'm cutting. You can make requests for things that you want. You can give opinions about how things look. You can negotiate about who gets the red one and who gets the blue one. So you have lots of different kinds of communicative functions that you can practice and model for your students. So Claire put together these examples. What you see on the right is our universal core vocabulary, and this has 36 symbols on it. And so she was coming up with the idea that during an art activity, the adult can model things that you might say during art, like, look, okay? You're certainly going to have things where you might open paint or glue or a thing of glitter or a little container that has, say, fuzz balls or something. You can say, I opened the paint. All the words that are underlined are what you can model. You can paint too. I like the blue, okay? So in response, if the student says something like, then you can expand by saying, oh, you like it. Okay, so you point to you and like, and it is on the board, but I don't want to point to a million different symbols. I just want to try and expand by one. So even though I'm saying 3 core words, I'm only going to point to 2. Okay? If the student says open, you might say, open it. Yeah. Okay. And she's highlighted symbols of look, eye, and open. When a student reaches for an item, attribute meaning. So the student is exhibiting this gesture, right? So it's intentional communication, but it's in no way symbolic. They're just reaching for something. So you can say, oh, you want more. And you're showing them where want is on that. If an activity is ending, even though the student might not use symbolic communication yet, you as the adult can model, we are finished. Look what we made. I like it, okay? Or it's time to stop. So you're teaching as you do these things because they're seeing you use the symbols in a meaningful context. Claire likes to talk about high interest activities examples, and so, for instance, in one of the schools we're at, in the high school class, they talk a lot about football. And I actually wish they'd talk a little less about football, because if you don't like football, and I do, but if you don't like football, you're sitting there for a while every day, and it's kind of during the season, and you have to hear about it. So I know that sometimes my husband talks about things that I'm not really interested in, and so I think about that for kids who might be sitting there during this football conversation. So in a high-interest activity, you can talk about what are your preferences and choices. You can try, in this football conversation, they talk about what teams they like, who they think might win. They try to persuade you to root for their team. They say, they make predictions about what's going to happen in the games, and they have these multiple turn interactions. And so they're very, very invested in this topic. So it's nice because it provides an opportunity for sustained attention, and they get lots of communication opportunities around this same topic. So this is an example of what Claire was thinking about if they were talking, say, about AAC basketball, right? So because it was Claire and not Penny, it says, I like Kentucky. If it was Penny, it would say, I like UNC. Okay, but Claire has, I like Kentucky, so she's just modeling the word like. And then she says the correct phrase, I do not like Duke. Okay? Then she'll ask the question, using the word like again, but combining it up in a different way. Do you like the same team? Do you like something different? Okay. Then she does a little poll. Who likes Duke? And who likes Kentucky? All right. So she's always modeling 1 to 2 core words, and she's getting a lot of repetitions of the word like. She's getting a couple of different repetitions of the word who in there, so kids get an opportunity to use it, but it's repetition with variety. So she's highlighted like, not, who. All right, in response to the student, the adult points while asking, do you like Duke? Not like Duke? What do you think? Like or not? And then the student has a choice. Do you want Duke to win? Do you not want Duke to win? What do you think? You want it or not? Okay. And if a student responds, the adult is going to attribute meaning and expand. So if you have a student who says stop, Claire is suggesting that you could say, Kentucky will stop Duke. I would immediately think, oh, you want me to stop talking about basketball, all right? So there's lots of ways that you can interpret it, and sometimes your students are hitting that message, they're accessing that message by accident. But as you attribute meaning, then they begin to see, uh-oh, when I do this, that happens. So it's helpful for teaching. You can use core certainly at mealtime, and so you can use core at mealtime to express your preferences about what you want to eat or choices. So even though I don't have cookies on there, I might say, want that while I'm looking at the cookie or pointing at the cookie, all right? You can practice these different kinds of communicative functions, such as taking a turn or giving an opinion. All right. So you can comment to students and other teachers using core by doing things where the adult models something like, I like muffins. I think you like muffins too, if the child is sitting there eating it and appearing to enjoy it. If somebody's trying to open their milk, you can say, oh, I will help you. I will help open your milk. Okay? And you might see somebody else eating. You can draw the student's attention and say, look, so-and-so likes muffins too. All right? If a student requests an item and begins to eat it, then you can ask, do you like it? I like that too. All right, so you're just highlighting, you're looking for natural opportunities to highlight those words. In one of, or a couple actually, of the classrooms that we work in this current study, the teachers and speech language pathologists have been very enthusiastic about putting a PECS, or Picture Exchange Communication System, in place. And so I never want to, while I think CORE can have as much, and in my opinion, more value than a PECS system for communication, because I think it allows you to do more than just request things, I'm not going to take away a PECS system that a student is using and using successfully. So if the student uses PECS to request something, you can still use the core words in combination with that by commenting on what they did. Okay, so if they're requesting a cookie with PECS, probably all of you know this, but if you don't, they hand you the cookie symbol, or they might combine it with I want cookie and hand you that, at which point you're going to say, oh, I want cookie, and then give them a cookie. Here we're saying that you still go through all of that, but you might say, oh, you want more. Not me. All right, so you can make the exchange and the request with PECS, but then I'm going to enhance it by using some of that core vocabulary. During cleanup, maybe they've used PECS to do all their requesting of food, but now this is a great time for me to use my core vocabulary system to tell a student, help me clean up. We need to put it in the trash. Okay? We're finished. Okay? So those are all ways that you can sort of combine core with a PECS system. You can certainly use core during a math lesson. And so just take a second. If you're with other folks, you can talk to them. If you're by yourself, just think about it. But suppose you had these 36 words and the number line 0 through 9, and your students were looking at the pattern above that's oval, oval, rectangle, oval, oval, rectangle. What might your students be able to say about that pattern using core words and using numbers? Think about it for a second. Does anything come to mind? Can you think of how to put some of those words together? So some things that you might say is, if you look at this pattern, some of it is the same and some of it is different. I might say there, I might point to the number 2 are the same and 1 is different. I might say there is more than 1 here. It could mean more than one item. It could mean more than one shape. All right? So it's not, you want to start thinking creatively and start talking coreese, so that you're beginning to use these words and model how to use them for your sentence. So Claire had picked out the words it, more, and it, different, and that, one, and that, two. So the rectangle would be that's one of those, and two ovals. Okay, so those are just a number of things that you want to consider in terms of communication and core vocabulary and AAC and how all of this fits together. Claire has had some questions that I'm assuming you sent in to her, and so given that information, she has had some responses to some of your questions. So the first question was about students who use eye gaze devices, and what can you do until you get a form of communication going. So if you have a student who uses eye gaze, you may be in line for getting a high-tech dynamic display eye gaze device from a company like Tobii Dynavox or Primke Bromwich. Or you may be starting with just an eye gaze frame where you're providing some choices. But until you get that high-tech device, you do need to get started. So the first point that Claire had made is that some kids need to develop more than one system of communication. And I would venture to say that everyone needs to develop more than one system of communication. You and I certainly have more than one system because we talk and we write. And so we need to know that technology is not always going to be available for our students. It won't always be working. It's not always appropriate in all environments. So you want to make sure that you're working with students on those natural gestures to communicate. And those will be, if you look at the communication matrix for a reference or the chart that was provided earlier in this presentation, you can take a look at some of those level 2 and 3 behaviors. So a gesture doesn't have to be something you do with your hands, right? It could be sort of something that's happening with your face. It could be your eyes getting wide. It might be a head nod. It might be something that you're reaching for, holding your hand out. But it might also be somebody who's leaning towards you, okay, because they want to get closer to you. So you want to make sure that you're responding and attributing meaning to those unaided communication behaviors as well as beginning to work on aided communication. Students can work on eye gaze with or without the device all day long during partner-assisted scanning type activities. So you can have core vocabulary words up on just an eye gaze frame, which might be a clear square. It might be pieces of PVC pipe that have been put together, and you're velcroing a symbol in each corner of your square. And so remember that as students look at these symbols and sort of focus on them, they may not really be doing that intentionally yet, but you're going to help them understand that what they do, those behaviors, do convey messages and have consequences. And so you're going to try and attribute meaning to what they're looking at and what they're doing, because they may not be sure about what they're choosing. On devices, if you get like a Tobii device or something like that, a high-tech dynamic display, there are often a lot of cause and effect games that teach students how to operate the device, and it kind of helps them refine their eye movements for gazing at different things. But please be aware that as you engage in those kinds of games, those games that you're using for cause and effect do not teach communication. It's not the same. But if you think about communication, communication is all about cause and effect, all right? So if you have an eye gaze system that has messages on it or choices, once a student looks at something, that's the cause, and the effect is that I'm responding to whatever message they gave me. So in my augmentative communication class, we always talk about communication being the best way to work on cause and effect. I have a student right now, a former student, who's working in a school district, and she got chastised by her supervisor for giving a low-tech system to a student, and the supervisor said, well, I don't think that student has cause and effect. And so, but I was saying, you know what, here's the ultimate way to teach it to them. You give them the system, I respond to what behaviors they're putting out there, and I'm showing them how what they do affects my behavior. Again, with any other device, eye gaze, you're still going to have to kind of model the use of the device to communicate, but I think it's more difficult with eye gaze. So what you can do is you just start simple and you kind of talk aloud and do a think aloud so that you're describing to the students what you're doing. So Claire has put this example. We have 2 books to choose from today. I'm going to use my eyes to make the choice. So you sit in front of the student so that they can see the books and your face, okay? You're holding up the books and you look and you say, oh, I'm looking at the ABC book. I chose the ABC book. So that's the way that you can model with eye gaze. When students are looking at something, don't just attribute meaning, but sort of give a little bit of an explanation. So if you've got 4 symbols on a board and somebody gazes to want, you say, oh, you're looking at want. You want that. Okay, let me get it for you. All right. Attribute meaning to those unconventional behaviors, and when they're doing something like smiling, oh, I think you're telling me you like that because you're smiling. You can use your eyes to tell me I like by looking at this symbol right here or this picture.
Penny?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
This is Tracy in Worland, and we're the staff with the eye gaze students.
Oh, okay.
We do have the PVC pipe square to put the 2 choices on.
Uh-huh.
Out of the core vocabulary, if we were to start, which 2 would you suggest we use?
Do you think that the student could handle possibly 4 choices rather than 2?
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to trying it.
Uh-huh.
But we have a lot of medical concerns and vision concerns also.
Okay. So if you can start, I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions. If you can start with 4, do you have access? Let's go. I'm going to go back a couple of screens, okay? And I'm going to show you. Do you see the 36 symbols that are on this slide right here?
Right.
Okay. I might start with the top 4 in that corner: like, want, not, and go. Okay. These symbols are organized in such a way that the clusters of 4 are meant to hang together as a cluster. It's best if you can use all of them, but if you have to boil it down, try to just use, try to stick with 4 that are in the same neighborhood. Okay, so there's this first 4. The next cluster of 4 would be get, make, look, and turn. The next cluster of 4 is good, more, help, and different. Okay, and it just goes down. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and so what you're going to do, the thing about not, it's one of my favorite words, it's so powerful because you can take all 3 of those other verbs that you have, want, go, and like, and so you've got the positive of it, but you also have the negation, okay? And so so there's a way to combine that way. You also might say, I want go, okay, not want go. Right? So this is, you're moving it up and up and up, but this will give your student a lot of things to say to start with that can apply to almost any setting. Okay? So if you were using the math example, I might say something like, oh, look at this pattern. What do you think about it? Do you like it or not? Do you want to help me make one? Okay, and you just see where they're looking, and if the student says go, if they just happen to look at go accidentally, you say, oh, okay, let's get going. We're going to make one. And then you let them kind of help you make it. If they can't use your hands, you're giving them 2 choices. Again, you're practicing eye gaze, but low tech. What should we put first? The oval, I don't know why I can't think of that word, and the rectangle. Which one do you want first? Do you want the oval or the rectangle? And maybe they don't know first, and maybe they don't know oval and rectangle. But you're teaching, right? So they're making their own pattern. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure. And again, you could try the beauty of having those 4 words that are in those squares like that is that there are multiple ways to combine them for you to expand language and for students to say a variety of things.
Okay, so basically set up some situations where the student could access those words to make something happen.
Yes. And you might ask their opinion about something, what they want to do. You have to start being really, really flexible. Somebody's asked later in this presentation about more examples of people modeling core, I think it is, and we are going to have more examples through this current project. We don't have them yet, and it's unfortunate that we don't have them just yet because I'm seeing some teachers who do this so flexibly, and it's given me ideas about, oh yeah, that's right. If somebody says go, it doesn't mean go away. It might mean let's get going, let's do it, let's keep reading, okay, so lots and lots of different ways to use the language flexibly.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to move this more forward. The other thing I was going to say, Tracy, is before I go, would be if you're asking, do you find yourself asking yes or no questions?
I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Do you or your staff sometimes find yourself asking the student yes or no questions?
I mean, we could ask them, but we wouldn't get a response.
Okay.
There's no response.
Okay, because sometimes another easy way to practice eye gaze is you just hold up one hand and say, look here if the answer is yes, look here if it's no.
Right, exactly.
Just another easy, low-tech, on-you way to practice those things.
We just don't have we don't have a dependable response from her at this point in time. So we're going to have to assume if she looks at we're going to have to do the assumption that that's what she picked and then go with it.
And so,
you understand what I'm saying? Because we don't know that she really wanted or understands like.
Right. Even if you get it wrong, if it's really important to her, then she's going to protest. At which point you're going to say, oh, well, you looked at like. When you did that, that made me think you wanted it. Okay? So who knows how much language she's taking in or not, but you keep repeating the language and keep talking about the consequences of her behavior, and that's how she begins to learn. And sometimes, the kids that we work with, sometimes they just like interaction, so they don't care if you've misinterpreted their message just because you're interacting with them. So it's just kind of good to give them feedback about what they did that made you do this, so they begin to learn.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, we're going to go back forward. And so that was all about eye gaze. I think Claire had another question about using the touch chat throughout the day. And by any chance, is the person who posed the touch chat question on this call? The only reason I'm asking is that, I'm wondering what kind of vocabulary you have on the touch chat, because you can have a device, and touch chat has lots and lots of different things. We've worked with a school district that used a core that was in touch chat and then sort of just personalized it a little bit to make it actually more generic. Personalized is not really a good word. So the thing is, you want to think about those examples that I just gave you, and sometimes a good idea is just sit down and write out, what are the things that I do during the day? Okay, what are the activities that my students do every day? And how can I use that in those different activities? So we showed you some ideas for art, showed you some ideas for sort of like discussion type activities, preferred activities, showed you some ideas for if you're eating lunch. But you would think about, how is it when I'm doing shared reading that I can use my touch chat? I mean, you're making that available. You might be, if you think about that teacher that demonstrated teaching can, she is going to be, anytime she gets a chance to highlight the word can in books that she's reading or activities that she's doing, she's really going to try and highlight that word. So sometimes you want to think about how you can fit your touch chat into all your different activities, but you also want to think maybe a couple of weeks at a time, what are the words I'm going to try and really highlight this week? Okay. Does that help? Someone asked if there were more videos of core vocabulary instruction. And as Claire put on there, we're in the process of working on a research grant that is going to give us more examples. And I have some nice ones that I don't have the permission in place to show them yet, but I'll make them available to Claire too, of teachers who are doing a shared reading it's those same teachers from the other video. They're using their big classroom size core vocabulary board during shared reading. And what the teacher did is, because shared reading should be about interacting around every page, is she went through and put a little sticky note for herself on each page of this book that she was reading of words of core vocabulary words that she could highlight on that page. And so when she would read something, it might be like, oh, the farmer said, look here, she'll pull down the word look. Yep, he said look. So she'd gone through the book in advance and just made those notes for herself. The more that you do this type of thing, the more fluent you get with it, and the easier it is to think about how you can incorporate core words into your instruction. But it is, I think there's a little bit of a learning curve there. The next section that Claire had outlined was this idea of working on rhyming. So she's talking about rhyming. This word rhymes or sounds the same at the end as that. This idea of rhymes, which are word endings. It's the letter that it's the first vowel in a word and the consonants that follow it. And then the idea of a particular activity called making words. And so when she's talking about rhyming, she's talking about helping the students appreciate rhyme from both a written and visual level as well as a sound level. When you're just working with kids to sort of pick up the sound piece of rhyme, that can be done at an emergent level, and it should be. But when you're working on talking about the construction of words, right, and why they do rhyme, because these letters are the same at the end, then you're at a conventional level, because kids have to understand what those letters are. So now we're going to talk about how you can work on this at a conventional level. And if your students do not know most of the letters most of the time, if they're not actively engaged in shared reading and interested, if they don't have a means of communication and interaction or understand that writing involves letters and words, they're emergent. So they're ready to listen to rhyme, but they're not ready to start analyzing it in the way of spelling. So even you can go to the wiki, and Claire has put some resources for you there under word identification. And one of those resources is called the CLDS Keyword Decoding. And it will help you think of a lot of different ways that you can work on words with students. So the ability to, kind of look at a single word and either read it so often that you're learning it by sight, or use it so often that you're learning it by sight, or understanding strategies that you can use to figure it out. Okay? So you can plan lots of different word activities, and some of those word activities might include words that rhyme. So they might be around a word wall activity. They might be around a making words activity. It might be reading books that have lots of rhyme in them, or it might be in predictable chart writing. But one thing that really, really helps students see patterns of words that rhyme are word sorts. And so you want to be sure that you're including word sorts in your instruction. And she's put together an example of what a word sort might look like. So you might start with this idea that you're going to listen for the rhyming sound. So there's a book called The Magic Hat, or Any Rhyming Book, And in the Magic Hat, it's a story about a magic hat that appears one day in town, and it will change a person into an animal. And if you read the book, it's going to be rhyming, so you ask your students to predict which animals the people will be turned into in the story. So the rhyming, the sound of the word is going to help them make their prediction, okay? It might be, Mr. Jones, he's really big, but guess what? He got turned into a pig, okay? So you want to help them try and figure that out. Model how to make predictions by using illustrations from the book and words and pointing out, oh, listen, they sound the same on the end. After reading a book, then you might learn more about rhyming words, and you can do this word family sort. So during the summer, we talked about these 37 most common rhymes in English. So by rhyme, I mean a word ending, an R-I-M-E. And so those rhymes will be on the keyword decoding site, but you can also look them up by looking up the authors Wiley, W-Y-L-I-E, and Durrell, D-U-R-R-E-L-L, and they'll give you those 37 common rhymes. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick 2 of them, and you're going to write them on 2 cards, just like an index card, and you're going to have words that can end in that rhyme, and you're going to ask students to sort the words. So here, Claire has given the example of using at and an. Many, many words by putting a consonant on the front of at. You can make many, many words by putting different consonants on the front of an. And so what you're going to do is tell students that I've got more word cards, and they have these same word endings, these same families. So I'm going to show them to you, and you put the card in the pile where it has the same word ending. Okay? You can begin. And you can demonstrate, so for your AT family, demonstrate with the card MAT. So it's written out, M-A-T. And so you can tell students you're going to put this card in the same pile that has the word cat, because they both have an AT at the end. Okay? And then what you can do is start handing the cards to the student and let them decide where it goes. It doesn't matter if the student puts the card in the wrong pile, because it presents a lovely teaching opportunity for you. If you put the word fan out there and the student puts it in the same pile with cat, you say, well, let's see. This word says fan and this word says cat. Let's look at the letters that are in the both, okay? This one has a C, this one has an F. Those are different. They both have an A in the middle, but uh-oh. This one on the end is a T, and this one is an N. Let's see if it looks any better in the other pile. Okay, so now you've got man and fan. This has an M, this has an F. Those are different. The A's the same. What about the letter on the N? Oh, that says N and this says N. Which ones sound more alike? Do you think man and fan or cat and man? All right. So really give students an opportunity to compare and contrast, and you know that look, they've got a 50% chance of getting it right just by accident, right? So you want to make sure that you're providing instruction and feedback even if they get it right, and reinforcing what it is you're trying to teach. She's talking here about how after you've demonstrated several cards, you invite the students to help you sort. That's what we were just talking about. And you don't expect the students to read the cards independently before you've sorted them, because this may be the first time. Maybe they know some words that end in AT, but not a lot of words that end in AT. And after you've sorted all of the words, read the cards in each column together, so you really reinforce the idea that, oh, all of these that end with AT sound the same on the end. All right? And end the session by reiterating that students have learned about rhymes for at and an. And tomorrow, we're going to have an opportunity to sort these words again with a partner. Okay? Now, you don't want to worry about doing something to mastery. Okay? Another day, pick 2 other word families. You can do at again, but let's do at with ig. Okay? So I've got big and fig and pig and rig, right? And so, in fact, when you start, you know, at and an may be too close together. You might put something where if you're going to have consonant, vowel, consonant in these 2 different word families, make the middle vowel and the ending consonant different between the 2 words so that there's a lot of contrast and students it's not just that you want them to be successful, it's that you want them to really hear those differences. So if you've got a different vowel in the middle and a different ending consonant, it's going to highlight the difference better as they begin working on this. Rhyming and visuals, we do this without using pictures. We do this just with words written on a card because I don't want kids focused on the picture. I want them focused on the letters that make up this word. There is a visual pattern in these word families that I want kids to attend to, so I don't want to muddy those waters and distract them from that visual pattern by having a picture of a pig or a fig, okay, or a wig, right? I'm just going to have the written word. Any questions about working on those sort of word sort and rhyming activities? No? Okay. Then let's talk a little bit about alternate pencils now. So when you're providing an alternate pencil to a student, they're learning lots and lots of things. Even using a conventional pencil, they're using lots of things. They're learning how that pencil operates, right? They're trying to figure that out. They're trying to experiment with their pencil so that they can try and create something that they understand and that other people can understand. They're learning that we write in order to communicate. It's different than drawing a picture that I might like to see just to look at for myself. Writing is a form of communication, and writing is thought written down. So your writing can represent your ideas. The important thing to know, though, is that an alternate pencil does not replace a student's communication system. Okay? Even people who have had fully developed language, like an older person, and there's something, like think of a person who has Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS. Their language is really good, and they, for most part, are really competent spellers and communicators. And what's happened is their body is stopping working, but not their mind. And so you might think that a person in that situation could rely completely on spelling, but it's too hard to rely completely on spelling, even for a person who's been a really, really experienced and competent communicator. We have the alphabet there, and we have the pencil there for students to begin to learn about spelling, so that when they have that word that they really want to tell you about and it's not in their system, they've got a way to communicate it. But we also want to have enough words available in their communication system to sort of get them by day to day. So you need both, right? Otherwise it's too exhausting. You can use the pencil for many, many different types of activities. During independent writing, the student can use it to write after they've chosen a topic. So they may be an emergent early communicator, and they may not be spelling anything, but they're going to choose a topic first. And as they use their pencil to write, then you are going to try to find ways to connect if they're using something where they're using a keyboard, where they're producing letters, even though they're not spelling anything, or the eye gaze, or the partner-assisted scanning, we're writing down fully formed letters because these students don't have to operate the pencil, but they're not spelling anything. If they did have to operate a pencil, it would be the equivalent of scribbling. So they pick that topic. It helps them have something to focus on when they write about it, and it gives us a clue and an anchor as some way to take some of those letters that they may have chosen and try and attribute meaning and make a connection between that letter and the topic. When a student's trying to tell you something and the word isn't on the communication system, they may not have the skills to completely spell out the whole word yet, but you can ask a lot of questions, and one of those questions is, what letter does that word start with? So lots of people rely on what we call first letter cueing, and that's why I like to have an alphabet for every student. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give them access to that alphabet because I might be modeling some of that even before they're ready to put it out. Questions about alternate pencils? Anybody? Okay, we talk a little bit more about writing here. So you have to be, do any of you have any of those students who are perfectionists about it has to look just right or they don't want to do it? So much so that this is what happens with kids who a lot of times have done a lot of copying. And so they don't want to attempt to spell a word unless they absolutely know how it's spelled. You also can have kids that are so tied up in making the writing look good that they want to erase or get rid of it if it doesn't look like what they wanted to say. So if you have students who are really focused on like the production piece of writing, the form of it versus the content, you can begin using a keyboard with those students rather than a conventional pencil, so that their energy can be focused instead of producing letters on what they want to say. All right? It's okay, and in my world, it's preferable that handwriting is an activity that's separate from writing. Okay? Handwriting is something where you're working on formation of letters, and that's fine, and it's great to have that goal, but I have to put too many physical and cognitive resources towards that, if that's my main goal, to be focused on the idea of composing writing and getting my thoughts down on a piece of paper. So, again, it's fine to have handwriting as a goal. You just don't want to work on it during writing time. Predictable chart writing is a great way to work on writing with those kids who are at an early or emergent level. It doesn't take the place of independent writing. You still want them to have the opportunity to write independently. But in predictable chart writing, you're offering an opportunity for them to see a model of you doing the writing, and so they see what correct spelling is and things that you do when you write. You might model some punctuation, just for kids to get an understanding and learning about it. During predictable chart writing, if you've got a student using an alternate pencil, don't use it during this activity. The idea here is to learn more about writing in terms of a person showing you how to do it than to actually, and it's about coming up with ideas and communicating about ideas. It's less about producing something, because all you do is you have this repeated sentence frame and you just fill in the blank at the end with whatever your choice is. So if you have some students who can handwrite and it's easy, go ahead and let them do it, but you might have that student who uses an alternate pencil show you on their pencil what's the first letter of that word that he just wrote. Okay. Or, oh, you want to write today about, you're saying your favorite toy in the classroom is the, oh wait, let me put it this way. You're saying that your favorite drink at snack time is a margarita, okay, what letter does that margarita begin with? All right, so you might write the word in for them, but you're getting them to show you the letter. You can put words in word banks for kids to choose. You can have symbols for kids to choose for whatever they want to put. You can have objects, but if you have somebody using their alternate pencil during this activity, it's likely going to take too long and you're trying to work with a whole group. You want to maintain engagement during this activity, and so there's that real balance that you work on as a teacher, so that you get the benefit of teaching a group, so lots of people are learning and students are getting the benefit of watching their peers and learning from their peers and interacting with their peers, but you also don't want it to be a time when kids have to wait a long time for their turn. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. So if you think back to the video that Claire and I showed you during the summer, it was our friend Sharon Bright. She was teaching a lesson about gardening, and in order to complete the predictable chart writing chart, she created a word bank. And so she had students, she taught them a vocabulary lesson about what these objects were and what their names were, and then she wrote down the names of all the items, and kids then were able to choose from that bank of items about what they wanted to fill in their sentence. And again, it's a good activity to differentiate instruction in, because for Sharon, when she was doing this, she was having some kids come up and write the whole word because they knew how to either write it or they could do some what's called far copying. They could do part of it, then look up and see where they left off, and then like copying from a word wall, which is a different kind of copying than I put it right next to you and you copy. That's not of value. Far copying is. And then she had other students who would just pick their selection, make a choice, and she would write it in. Or she might have somebody else to say, oh, yeah, you picked the shovel. Can you tell me the first letter in that word? And then, so she's at different levels with different kids. The main idea is you're providing some structure during a predictable chart writing activity, and it allows kids at the same time to generate their own ideas within that structure. And so you're going to give them any way you can to communicate about what they're thinking, and just think about those levels of communication that we just talked about, well, not just, now it's been a while ago, but at the beginning of the webinar from the communication matrix. So remember, there are those early sort of unconventional body movements and behaviors. There are vocalizations, there are reaches, there are looks. Then you can get to students who might be doing some or all their communication through words or symbols. You might have some students who are communicating because you're showing them photos and they're making a choice, or you might be doing using objects like Sharon used in that garden lesson.
Penny?
Yes.
This is Tracy again in Worland. We were supposed to be done at 5:30. I have people who need to leave. I realize there's still quite a bit left in the handout.
That's not a problem. I'm sorry, Claire told me 5:45, so I apologize. 7:45 my time, so I apologize. But why don't I wrap up here, and I'll let Claire know how far we got. She can take it from there if that works for you guys. Let me see.
That's great for us.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
And if anybody has, I'm sorry, Penny, if anyone has any questions about the handouts, please let me know and I'll share those with Claire.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I would never go over at the end of a day. All right, thank you very much for letting me step in for Claire, and I hope to see you again.
Hey, thank you, Penny.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Penny.
Bye.
Hi, and again, if anyone has any questions on the remaining slides, please email me, and I will be sending out a link for the evaluation. And wishing you all a good night, and stay warm, and Hopefully you're not all snowed in.
This is Joanna. I just wanted to make sure that you got me. I sent you a chat to let you know I was here.
Yes. Thanks, Joanna. We got
Who's
you.
talking?
Thanks.
Joanna. I got her.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Joanna, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I haven't done evaluation on any of them.
Thanks, Joanne.
Jennifer, are you still on?